After 7 years in production, indie developer and mostly one-man army Matthias Linda's Chain of Echoes has finally come out. It's a spectacular 16-bit inspired progressive JRPG, meant to invoke the wonder and joy from what many consider the Golden Age of JRPGs. The question now, after such a long time of development, is if Chained Echoes stands among the greats of the genre, or was it left in the oven for too long? The kingdoms of Valandis have been at war for several generations. When an operation to gain hold of a magical artifact unleashes a terrible force of destruction, peace becomes the only option. But when war without end and unreasoning hatred continue to hold sway, peace can only last so long. A plot to start a new war between the kingdoms throws Glenn and his friends deep into the middle of an assassination plot, in the hope that they can stop it before it begins. While the overall story is pretty much par for the course for many role-playing games, it's really what Chained Echoes does in between the major story beats that make it shine. There's a wonderfully diverse cast of party members to play with, none of whom feel like a second-fiddle sidekick just thrown in there to buff the hero. Everyone has their own backstory, and the game often throws you into the shoes of other party members to drive home the point no one is a throwaway accessory. There are plenty of twists and turns to the story, along with oodles of side quests and world building that always ensure there's something new to do or encounter. There's a lot of political maneuvering at play, but it's the characterization and impressive sprite work that elevates a story we've all seen before. Coupled with some fantastic writing, especially for our party of heroes, Chained Echoes' wonderful story and satisfying exploration can chew up the hours relentlessly. Chained Echoes builds upon mechanics of RPGs from yore. Its inspirations, clearly apparent on its proverbial sleeve, have been improved with the hindsight that 20 or so years can bring. World exploration remains the same as ever. You can travel on foot, scale cliffs, explore towns, delve into dungeons, and at some point you'll gain your own customizable airship. There's also a mech suit for you to run around in, which is more than just a movement mechanic. Fast travel has been implemented with areas unlocking the first time you visit them, so there's none of that old school tedium of having to backtrack through a winding canyon dungeon just so you can add in a side quest at a small village. Oh, and enemies can be seen and avoided in the world. There are no random battles here. Traditional leveling has also been done away with. Instead, stat boosts are tied into a skill, armor, and weapon upgrade system. You'll gain Grimoire points for every boss you defeat, which will let you unlock a new skill, be it passive or active. Every couple of skills you unlock will see a boost for your character. Furthermore, you can enhance stats with equipable items, and crafting gems to slot into your weapons and armor, along with leveling said weapons through use. Each enemy defeated gives you the SP, or skill points, that you'll need to level up your skills. Skills can be leveled up 3 times with significant boosts to their abilities each time. Sadly, this is the one time that grinding raises its ugly head in Chained Echoes. The game's design feels tailor-made for continuous forward progression, and in many ways the pacing and level layout for dungeons feels like an older BioWare RPG, where you're always at just the right level to fight what's been thrown at you. Well, mostly. I say mostly, as you'll want to level all your skills to survive Chained Echoes' challenging combat. Whether it's a standard overworld enemy or a boss, every encounter in this game can be your last. The balancing has been set just perfectly so that every fight forces you to take full advantage of your skill set. Talking combat, it's the traditional turn-based type, but also incredibly in-depth, nuanced and tactical. You can't just mash a button while staring at your phone and hope to get somewhere. You have to pay attention to every move in a fight. Without the usual leveling systems to grind yourself into an easier encounter, enemies can really dish out the pain. As such, beating them requires you to use all your skills and have a decent enough plan. Once you recruit more than 4 party members, you can even swap them in and out any time during a fight, with the new members coming in ready to attack. Part of the reason you have to do that is skills are designed to complement each other. So, just as there are no throwaway party members in the narrative, there are no throwaway skills in combat either. As a simple example, Glenn can go to an enemy in oil, while Len can use a fire attack to ignite the oil and inflict massive damage. It's also one of the few games in which poison is an absolutely essential skill to use in a fight. Paying attention to what an enemy throws at your party, along with what buffs they can cast, is imperative. An early fight against some ghosts had me repeatedly losing, until I realised that the first attack type you use on a ghost is what they cast a 100% effective buff against, forcing you to use a different type of attack to beat them. Battles are designed to be fast and challenging, but many of them, especially the boss fights, can really go the distance. Having said that, none of them ever felt like a chore. To add to your expanding arsenal of conventional gear and skills, there's an ultra move meter that builds up, with each character capable of using it to pull off a super. There are also no consequences for using all your skills or taking risks, as after each fight you're fully healed. The developers clearly want you to use your abilities all the time. The biggest game changer in contrast to old RPGs, and what you really have to pay attention to, is the overdrive meter. It's divided into 3 coloured segments equating to average, overdrive, and overheat. Each attack dealt, move used, or damage taken builds up the meter until it's in the green overdrive section. At this point you deal buff damage with each attack, but it's also where you have to start playing around with your attacks to keep it in the green and avoid it rising too high. It changes with each battle, and you'll find that defending and swapping out party members can also drop the gauge, while certain skills will also drop it lower still. The skills that do this are random in each fight, so you have to play around with it and figure out what you can use that's both beneficial and keeping the gauge in check at the same time. You see, if you let that bar hit the overheat section, enemies start doing double damage to you. As in-depth and technical as the combat system is, there was one negative I had. It's that fighting in your mech, your sky armor, essentially works exactly the same as fighting on foot, just with the attack and ability names slightly changed. Visually, Chained Echoes might look far from novel these days, but it is still a gorgeous 2D pixel art game nonetheless. The level of detail in the backgrounds is superb, and the game world is full of tiny animations like birds flying away from you, vegetation moving in the wind, or wheat parting as your party tromps through it. The sprite animation is just superb overall, especially as your party members bob and sway in combat, or just navigate the world in general. Adding to this visual package is the stunning score and punchy sound effects. Music often makes or breaks JRPGs, and I'm happy to say the musical score is wonderful throughout the game. Now, creating a 30 to 40 hour game is a challenge, even for a fully staffed studio with publisher backing, let alone for one person. But Matthias Linda has not only managed to capture the look of 16-bit JRPGs, but also recapture the fun of them. With its gripping story, quality writing, and tactical combat system, Chained Echoes is one of the best RPGs of the year. Don't pass this up, even if you're only a casual fan of the genre. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow.